and welcome to Rollwise, the show where we talk about all things tabletop role playing. If you like the kind of conversations we have, please don't be afraid to like, subscribe, share, comment, do all the stuff that helps us in the algorithm and all those things. We really like to talk with people in the comments and just see what other stories people like than they like to share. So today on our show, we're going to be talking a little bit about a fulfillment that was fulfilled, promise made, promise kept, about a book. And that's going to be Brent. And then we're going to talk about an article that kind of goes on the the tail end of what we were talking about last week with Robin's Laws of Good Gaming. They introduce some concepts in that I think are kind of that we're going to expand on a little bit with an article from the Angry GM, a person who seems to have been blogging on role playing games for a long time, I guess. I haven't read a ton of their articles, but I might start. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, Brent, take it away. What do we have from Rel?
So we just wanted to shout out to Rel, say congratulations. The copies of Distal, for those of us that ordered a hard copy, are shipping. I got mine already. I seem to have gotten mine on the first wave, and I believe Jeff's copy is on the way. So
I got a
congratulations,
tracking
Rel.
number.
Yeah, so congratulations on getting all the way through the Kickstarter. It's been about a year, almost a year since the Kickstarter went live. So for a one-man shop, it's pretty impressive that it got out that soon because I have some that were one-man shops that did not do so well. So congratulations. The book is beautiful. Yeah, I'm still waiting for
I
it.
can't wait to read it.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I haven't opened it up yet, but I leafed through it. The cover art's it's really beautiful book, been done really well. So congratulations.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, congratulations. Well, it's done. Your first one's in there, and I think Brent was talking about how he wanted to look through it, and then maybe we'll see if we can't revisit Distal and actually play using the setting,
Yeah,
um,
definitely. I would like to
instead
run.
of trying to shoehorn it into another setting that maybe doesn't feel like it does it as much justice.
Yeah, I definitely would like to find. I think there's a pre-generated one in the book that I might be able to run, or I'll
Mhm.
sit down and write something up. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, I think that's going to be a good time. So on to our main topic. Main topic, Angry GM. I don't know if you guys have really read any of their content blog or anything like that before.
No,
Um,
I have
until you sent
heard.
over the article, I didn't even know they existed.
I have heard of the Angry GM. He does have a YouTube channel as well.
oh, really?
Yeah, so I have seen some of his content and I have read some of his content, not consistently. So
Yeah, I really haven't. I know that there's a lot of people that have been kind of essayists in this space that have jotted down their thoughts and shared things to kind of help other people improve themselves in the hobby. I was actually surprised. I since we've gone on this, I would have thought that I would have seen a lot more of them, and maybe I've come across them. I just didn't remember. But this article is back from January 27th, 2014. So it's been a long time. And the premise of the article is Gaming for Fun, Part One. It's part of a series that they've done. And he talks about the 8 kinds of fun. And this actually spawns from a formal paper. And did you guys have a chance to look at that? There was actually a published paper called MDA, a formal approach to game design and game research, that he apparently chewed up, moved around, thought
well, yeah,
about it, and
because
everything
the
like that.
original article is about video games. It's about
Yep.
game designing video games.
Correct. Yeah. And it's like and probably it's that precursor to how people that make video games can take all of your money. That's probably the precursor
Well,
to it.
I mean, you could say that, or you could say it's how to precursor a successful game, because
Uh,
it doesn't look like it mentions microtransactions or anything like that in it. So
Not yet.
I would assume this is how to write a game that people want to play.
That's true. That's true. And so the kind of the premise that we looked at it is that this is kind of like when you say to yourself, well, why do you play games? So instead of necessarily like how you approach the games, it's kind of understanding the different types of like why do you play games? I mean, in general, like why do you guys play games? Like what do you when you sit down and you turn on a computer game or anything like that? Why do you play a game? What do you get out of it?
Have fun. Be distracted.
Yeah,
Waste time. Kill time.
we'll
Relax.
probably talk.
Because I've never been able to imagine what normal people do. So I've always just done what I like to do. As
Mhm.
far as role playing games, it's always been a social activity for me.
Mhm.
As somebody who doesn't drink and stuff like that, for me, social activities are sometimes difficult. And gaming has always been a good venue for being able to hang out with friends in kind of a neutral environment with a with
I,
a
I
with a
was
goal.
I was gonna say something. I was gonna say, so you've never drank, so you play role playing games, so you can get violently angry at the people that you're with, and
I don't get angry with the people that I'm with usually. I don't
I
even.
just meant like most people that drink, too much.
It's more along the lines of in my social group when I was younger, like everybody drank and like gaming people didn't. So I gravitated towards gaming because it was easier to hang out in that environment for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
How about you,
Well,
Mark?
it's kind of, well, and I mean, it's kind of interesting that the types of people sometimes you hang out with. If they don't drink, they fill their time with other things like gaming and all that kind of stuff. I have to say that it was actually kind of funny because I looked at uh, the different types and everything like that, and I was actually like, oh, they kind of hit the nail on the head with one of these. Sometimes I play video games just to literally zone out, turn off my brain for a bit. And when I was working a lot at my last job, I'd put so much effort into the job that I just wanted to be able to like farm herbs or
Yeah.
mine or just do something that didn't require a lot of effort but just kind of kept me going for the day, and I could just kind of like shut off my brain and just
Hmm.
go. um and I think that that's fascinating, that that's something that they call out, like that's a literal style of play of game, because I did fall in that category.
Well, and I think all games, any game that has repeatable stuff
Hmm.
has little bits of all of these, and so there is the little bits of those like I thought about Borderlands or like World of Warcraft or stuff like that, like repetitive farming stuff. Like that's exactly what they're talking about. Is they want it just to be just engaging enough to where you're playing, but
Hmm.
not so engaging you have to overthink what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the goals, to hit that sort of thing. And then they have other content that's more engaging that you can think about more. But
Hmm.
they definitely design games with that in mind. Borderlands does it where you're killing that same guy 400 times to get
I
that special
you
gun.
know I'm not going to lie. I'm currently in the little mini patch in WoW, and I'm going to probably you know burn out a little bit on it because just trying to get that mount drop, trying to get a damn cultist bags. Anybody that plays WoW will understand, but everyone else, I'll move on. So, um, so the idea about this is that what was fascinating about what the Angry GM was trying to do in this article is he was basically trying to extrapolate it to an RPG space. Other people had kind of made this, had expanded on the list. They had done other things to the list, but it had still kind of been it still hadn't really had an RPG spin on it. Now, whether or not somebody has taken a crack at it since 2014, I didn't look that hard, so maybe somebody has. But I think in his article, he does a really good job of like concisely identifying how these different types of fun come into the role playing space, and how you can kind of understand, well, this is if you're in for a challenge versus if you're in for the social components, like how that plays out. So, from your guys' perspective, like, why do you think this stuff really matters? Like, why does it matter to tabletop RPG people, and how can we as GMs
Well, I
use
mean,
it for our benefit?
all of these different styles of play, the 8 styles that he basically calls out, they all fit into those archetypes that we like. You
Mhm.
can subcategory each of those archetypes with these sorts of play styles, because this sort of thing. I mean, essentially, what this essay is, and the original essay is, how to make engaging interactive media is really what it's looking at. And the way to do that is to cater to the things people are looking for in an interactive experience, which is different for everybody, but is probably different in the sense that it's a scale of ranking versus one person is just interested in this, one person is just interested in this. this type of game appeals to, like, I think narrative is called out on here. Highly narrative game calls out this type of person, and then you can subcategorize everything below that as to which will drive
Mhm.
them more and to be engaged. It's all about engaging with your players and getting your players to be engaged with the game that you wrote, um,
Mhm.
or the video game that you wrote, but in this case, catering it um, to role playing games. And I think this applies to watched or written media as well. The ones that are a little different are like challenge, because like you can have like a movie, you can challenge them to try and figure it out before
Mhm.
the detective does, but that's not really the same thing as an interactive piece of media. But like any media kind of hits these values, I think, and that's what makes them engaging to an audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we get into the actual 8 types of fun, what about you, Jeff? What do you think? Like, what does this matter? And especially since you come from the player side and everything like that, where do you think this comes in to help you in the hobby?
I, honestly, I think it ties into engagement the most for the
Mhm.
players. If the GM understands the types of players that they have and the types of fun, if you will, that they want to have,
Mhm.
they can try to make sure that they have those types of hooks, those types of story elements, you know, in the adventure or in the
Mhm.
campaign.
Or even the kind of system that you choose for your
Or
players
Mhm.
is
yeah,
really
we've
going to
talked
be
about that.
dependent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
like Robin
some
Laws,
systems
brought up.
appeal to some people more than
Mhm.
others. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, because I think the one thing that I was looking at when I was kind of considering this is I was really, how do I say it? I was thinking that like the player types, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Like if if I look at the player types, I'm looking at how the people are kind of like engaging with the game. Like that's how they touch point with the game. But when you look at these 8 types of fun, it's just like, well, this is what makes the game kind of enjoyable, right? It's just like you have certain aspects that the game provides. And if you happen to be able to match up your player types to those games, those people probably are going to like the game or be more successful with it. That was at least the impression I had when I was reading through it.
Well, yeah, that's what
Um,
I mean. You could fit these under the
mhm,
category. Like you could take Robin Law's category and you could say, these of the 8 things, these 8 things are most strongly going to resonate with this archetype of player.
mhm.
And I think you could use those to influence your game and then influence that type of player.
Yeah, and so like selecting your game and the things like, and ironically enough, things like D&D and those kind of mid-level crunch games, I think you said it in the Robin Laws one. The reason why they're successful is because you can shoehorn it into these things, and it's malleable enough that you can, if you have a power gamer, you can make it about a power gamer.
Right.
You can do the challenge and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
it
it
hits
is
all.
it's
Yeah, like D&D hits all those flavor categories
mhm,
almost on accident, or maybe it was
yeah.
because it was really the first like kind of game it kind of developed from there. But yeah,
Yeah, and
um,
it's fascinating that it does that. I guess we should probably talk about the 8 types of fun before we get too deep into it. And so, should we do it like just a summary, or should we go how deep into this, do you think?
we should just.
Uh,
I think a summary would be good.
Thumbnails,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So the 8 types are pretty easy. We have fantasy, which in is what you play for like escapism, world building, immersion somewhere else, and all that kind of stuff. You have kind of a challenge, which is like how you overcome obstacles, mastering game mechanics, enjoying difficulty. At Dark Souls, people would probably like quite a bit. Fellowship, as Brent said, for your social aspects, teamwork, sharing an experience, a shared gameplay, discovery, exploring stuff, uncovering secrets, learning new things about your character, and all those kind of things. Expression, which is kind of like creative freedom. The expression one was kind of interesting because um, I think it was more that because I didn't really understand this one, but I think may correct like jump in here if this doesn't work for you. But expression was kind of like you as the player want to be able to write the story as well. Like you want to be able to leave your mark um, into it. So like a narrative game where like when we played Shadowrun Anarchy, that's a very expression friendly game because the players are supposed to be adding to the world kind of continuously, whereas the other one was less about that and more about the DM kind of explaining the world and you kind of discovering what the DM has hidden within the world. Is that a fair distinction between
Yeah,
the two?
I mean, I think you're 98% of the way there. Not to be that guy.
What's the missing
Because
part
well,
then?
I think narrative games where you're part of
Mhm,
helping to make up the story, I think are a bigger way of an
mhm,
expressive player making their stamp. But I mean, I think you're just trying to create something unique to you. Like
mhm,
I've been you've had D&D games where somebody has come up with an 11-page backstory for their
mhm.
character. They're trying to create a unique character that means something to them
Right.
to interact with the world that you're giving them. And I
Yeah.
think
Mhm,
I think that probably works for some people that are more
mhm,
expressive. It may not work for everyone. That's the thing. All of this stuff is a range.
Yeah.
mhm.
I think
It's a
I,
sliding scale.
I think this is a big one that's a range.
Yeah.
Because I think there are people that are going to be super happy with the expression of their character. Like this is my character, this is who they are, and I was creative on that character. And then there's going to be more people
Mhm,
people that want to do more narrative control. But I think the
Mhm.
people that want more narrative control, their form of expression is usually going to gravitate towards running a game if that's the sort of thing that they want to do.
yeah.
Ultimately, yeah,
Yeah,
you right because you get even more control.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
you
even in
you
the
get the
narrative
ultimate. Yeah,
system, the game master probably has a little bit more control than the players
yeah,
even,
the
even though
ultimate
it's
form of
supposed to be
expression
shared.
Yeah.
within role playing
So
games.
expression that was the one that was kind of a little bit tricky to kind of explain because there is a narrative type of fun where you kind of enjoy the storytelling, and then there's a sensation type of fun where it's like tactile and you get to experience the game. And and the way he explained it was like you get your minis, your maps, your
Right, your
books, and all that
props.
kind of
Yeah,
stuff. And then lastly, there was submission, which was kind of your just if you want to play a beer and pretzels games because you just want to relax and unwind and not have
I think this is the toughest one, frankly.
the which one?
Submission,
Hmm.
which he didn't like to call it submission. He had another word for it.
Abnegation.
Abnegation. Yeah. And the reason that I think this one's interesting is because he talks about in the article, he talks about how he had a guy that would not fit in with his game because
Mhm,
his game's more serious. Like you have to like think and stuff like that. And I think this is an interesting one because like you can see this in video games. Like you
mhm,
can see that, oh, this is the part of the game where I really don't have to think about what I'm doing at all. I can just kind of
mhm,
coast through it.
Yeah,
And there's definitely players that want to do this in a role playing game, but it's weird sometimes because in order to play a role playing game, like you have to be engaged with it mentally. So this is a
mhm,
tough one. So I think this is one of the more interesting ones because it's a balance because there are players that you're going to have that don't want to be as involved, and then you're going to have players that want to be really involved. They don't want to ride the wave. They want to steer it. And you're going to have players that
that's
want
good.
to ride just take the ride along, and you have to
Mhm,
balance that really closely, I think. And if you have a player who doesn't want to like do any steering, like that's might be hard in some games.
mhm. Yeah, well, and it can be, and I think that this is where the kind of understanding your players really comes into it because I was kind of thinking about how we could apply these to the player types and say like, well, what player type goes with the different types of fun, and so when you start combining them, I think you actually get a very interesting, like if you look at the storyteller from Robin Laws, I think in my opinion that was pretty easy to say this is the storyteller and narrative fun kind of go together pretty well. If you want butt kickers, I think you kind of get challenge, like the challenge type of fun goes in pretty well with that one. But I thought that when you got into like, as you said, the person with the backstory, when you get into the specialist, the person who wants to play a ninja, I think you get fantasy and expression out of that type of game. Like, so,
Yeah, I think this list would be more of a ranking system.
mhm,
Like like if you're talking about the storyteller, you would put like storyteller as their archetype, and then you'd put
mhm,
narrative as the number one thing that's important to them.
yeah,
And then it would be like maybe expression. And
mhm,
then I would rank them, and
yeah,
that's how I would use this list. Whereas if it's like the butt kicker or the power gamer, it's like expression or problem solving. Like those are
mhm,
probably two. And then I would rank them if you're going to use this in conjunction with like what his book, I would say you'd rank them and then kind of build your game around like you
Yeah.
could build a chart. I mean, even if you're using math like he did in his book, you could build a chart and see where
Mhm.
they overlap the most, and that's kind of where you want to keep your. That's where you'd want your game to be.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think you could use these fun types to lead you to the type of player if they've expressed that's how they want to approach a game as well. Kind of like you can go both ways in doing that. And so and for me, I guess, the type of fun that I think that we have, and I think it really depends on the type of group that we're in. Because the one thing that I hate is that when you say like, oh, and this is, we used to do a lot of this when we were coaching and everything like that, was like, oh, you want to apply one label to somebody and be done. That's never how it works.
No.
You can't. Do you think, like, for example, do you think when you first started role playing, you sought out one of these 8 types of funds, and now you're in, your mature age, and you approach it from a different style of fun? Do you think you've grown and evolved in your old age, or where do you think you stand, or do you think you still have some of your initial thing? Like, and I'll give an example. When I was a young kid, obviously I loved power gaming. Give me those big numbers, baby. Loved it. What stupid build could I bring to the table today? But now I really hate to say I'm more of into the narrative type of fun. I really like discovering a story, with a little bit of fantasy. Getting into the escapism, getting into another world, and of course with the fellowship. Kind of those three tend to be where I gravitate, when I'm looking at it. What about you,
I'm
man?
probably more casual than I was when I was younger. Like younger, I got into the game a lot more. Like,
Mhm.
but narrative, just like narrative and fantasy, have probably always been the bigger pushes for me than pure power game. I was never much of a power gamer. Like numbers never, mind you, I've always rolled like shit on dice, so I never saw big numbers ever in any game. So that was never super my thing. It was a lot of story.
You got dissuaded from a power gamer because no matter
You,
how you built the character, you were
Yeah.
like, this
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 build
is
is
the crunchiest.
amazing.
you never house ruled the 100 point buy.
No, I did not. No matter how good
You
I
should
made a
try it. You
shot,
should try it sometime.
no matter how good I made a shadow runner at well yeah, but see I will say I do like mitigating that. Like I do prefer point buy because I can make my character, I can pick how my character is versus
Mhm.
be you know puppeted by the winds of randomness with my.
Sure.
Well, Brent, you have 3 threes that you can apply to your D&D character. Good luck.
Good job.
I I think most players evolve a bit.
Mhm.
Maybe some don't stray as far from their origins, but I think I have. I'm probably the one, depending on the system, that's most likely to power game. Like if you give me a system where it's obvious that something is better than doing something else, it's really hard for me not to just pick that because it feels like it's a win condition. Um, if the rules are that poorly written that this thing is obviously better than 90% of the other things you can pick,
Mhm.
Yeah,
then you should definitely pick that.
yeah, and I've always been in role playing games. I've always been the guy that's been like, "Well, I have an idea for a character," and then people are like, "That's terrible," and I'll be like, "Well, that's what I want to play, so that's what I'm
Yeah,
making."
so
And
play
I
it.
guess I'll
Like
be terrible then,
I'll
or I'll
just
find a way
I'll
to be
just suck it.
better.
no, but I mean as people have seen that have followed the channel, like we do a lot of narrative type games.
Mhm.
Mhm.
We do a lot more exploring. Surprisingly, probably do a lot more expressive stuff than I have in the past. Where I am trying to create part of this as something unique to me, that means a little bit more to me than just I'm a super badass.
Apple cider gaming, man. Apple cider gaming.
Well, I'm actually kind of curious because once we're done with this game, Inevitable, I'm wondering what the next game will be other than Aliens, because obviously that's going to be in our near future. Um, the Inevitable game is just so weird though, because it's very much a storytelling game, but it's a very expression focused game because you give a lot of the control to the players to kind of move the story and kind of craft the world with you. I'd be curious if I gave the group this list, like what types of what type of game would people be like? Would they want the escapism? Would they want a challenging game, and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'd be curious of like how everyone would rank it if I just got like a list of these and their priorities for the next game. And I wonder how hard that would be to craft a game based on that.
I think that list is best left for the GM to kind of rank their players versus players doing it themselves, because I think the players have a tendency, like some players are not going to be honest with themselves.
Well,
There's a lot of people that do not like ranking themselves, and so they're going to rank the things that they think you're going to favor.
Yeah.
maybe, but this is the. I mean, I think that this doesn't apply as much because it's basically like saying, like in this case, because you're saying, well, the kinds of fun that you want to have. Do you want to have like a cheeseburger versus a hot dog? Like
Well, I'm going to point out the thing that I always point out about players in a game. They all love homework, and they're all sure to get that homework done before the next session.
I don't know. Like I always appreciate power gamers because like home power gamers do the homework. They're like, I need to know how to fucking kill everything in this game. I've got it. So maybe we need more power gamers at the table.
I think you would hate that.
Yeah, I don't think you'd like that.
I might. I don't know. I've had a lot of power gamers in the past. I think that there's a certain level where it's like
That explains so much, Mike.
there's like I think a certain
Actually,
Well,
you're not
we'll
getting
we'll
anything
have to do an
special.
episode on that where we
You're not getting anything
psychoanalyze.
special. You're not getting anything special.
You're not getting nice things, power gamer. Haha. You'll
Mm.
level when I tell you you level.
That's why it was funny when I played in your game and I played the Halfling Berserker and I was like, I berserk, and you die. Because I was not a power gamer.
But you always wanted to be a halfling berserker.
He was really good.
Well-
He was really funny and he was a fun
He
character to
was.
play.
There may have been a point in my time where I had to kind of overcorrect to kind of compensate for the fact that all the players were better at me at creating fun combinations that invalidated most of the things that I could do. That when they say like, don't give a first level character flying, I'd be like, I'm lucky if it's flying. Like, I had the weirdest combinations that people were able to put together as part of their games. But you knew some of the people that we've gamed with in the past,
Right.
so.
Well,
Yeah.
so I will comment on your flying tangent really quick. The funniest thing about flying when it applies to D&D is it solves so many things that a first level character is supposed to have problems with. Like, I don't know, chasms or tunnel or deep pits or anything like that. It's like, oh, I just fly over it. Like if you read most first level adventures, at some point fly is going to fix it for them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My favorite is to just pick up a 1-pound rock and hover over their head, and then just shoot about 300 yards straight up, and just drop the rock straight down,
Yeah,
and watch it penetrate through everything that it hits,
It's just
and embed itself 3 feet into the ground.
flying is just such a weird thing.
It is, and honestly, it's funny because like the power gamers that I had were much more creative than just taking flying to solve all the problems. They would use esoteric combinations with whips and strange things that would allow them to get like grappling attacks while doing double max damage.
Dude, they were reading stuff on Usenet groups and stuff. They were
Back in the day.
metagaming.
Maybe. I mean, they were definitely power gaming. Whether they
See
were
that's
metagaming-
okay. So that is another thing. That is another point about your homework that I will make. Power gamers don't really need to do that much homework anymore. They need to do a search on Google.
Yep.
How to optimize Hexblade Warlock.
Yes. How do I break D&D 5th edition?
Or
and
whatever.
then they get 4,000 short
Or
form
Pathfinder
videos that say,
2nd edition.
And then they just need to pick
Combination.
one. And then they just and it's there.
When you say no to that one, they come up with some other innocuous combination. Yeah, let me do this.
What was your favorite one? The guy, the person keeps on getting married every.
Yeah.
What do you have to die in that scenario? I don't remember it all the stuff, but it was like
yes, you can't get divorced, but you have to die. But by the time you can do this, you're such high level, you can resurrect the barbarian. It's some barbarian subclass that gets bonuses from being resurrected too, if I remember right.
It was just
It was just a weird. And like, if you want to play that game, you play that game. Like, that's the game you're playing. If your players are coming up with those like that stuff, that's the game you're playing, and you should just go with it. You're playing a Looney Tunes high fantasy game at that point, and you should just roll with it if your players are those type of players, because they're not going to enjoy anything else. If your players are like, okay, we're going to get married, so we have this bonus for a month, and then we're going to kill, but we're married to the group, because it doesn't say it has to be a one-on-one person marriage, so everyone in the group is married, so we all get this 5+5 bonus for being married and being a group together. And then after that month, when it wears off, we have to kill the one guy who's married to us, so we break the bond, and then we resurrect him and then get married again, because he's technically a new person to marry because he was resurrected. And then we watch and repeat this for every month.
It's definitely a very much a, well, the rules say I can do it, but really, should you do it?
You're a cult now. You're a group of players as a cult with a weird ritual that they do every month that involves the human sacrifice of one person.
And a lot of materials for resurrection, so you have to have a benefactor that makes
you're pretty high level at that point. I think all that stuff's pretty easy to get at that point.
Maybe, I don't know. So I think that, kind of back to the bringing it back to GMs versus players. I think if as a GM, the one thing that, as we talked about last week, if your game is going well, you don't really need to necessarily like introduce a lot of things. But if you're looking to kind of like make your game better, or maybe even understand and analyze like what kind of elements you can include to your game to keep your table strong, so that your players like to keep on coming back to your sessions and everything, I think this is a good way to look at it. If you've had sessions with your players, you start taking notes about the kinds of things that they get really excited about, engaged about, like what stories are they telling about the time that they're spending at the table? Is it about the combat? Is it about the intrigue? Is it about the stuff that they're discovering? I mean, you can see what's exciting them, and you can start applying some of these labels and kind of prioritizing where they're fitting and everything like that. And you can start to go, okay, well, they really like this type of thing, this element, so I can spotlight them when I do this thing. But I do think that you can help players identify their preferred style of fun. I don't think that the players will necessarily lie. I think they'll probably tell you what they think. And
I don't think they'll lie. I just think that they will have they won't necessarily have I think sometimes they'll perceive themselves differently than the way that they play.
Yeah,
that's true. But I'm curious if you if you had the question, because like when you play games like Baldur's Gate 3, you obviously have hardcore mode, or you have like story mode, everybody hits you with wiffle bats kind of thing. There's obviously some questions that you could probably ask them to narrow that down. That would be one of them. If you play video games, how do you prefer to play them? Do you want them to be the hardest challenge possible, or do you want them to be story mode?
I hate using video game allegories for role playing, because I feel like they're very different. So I don't necessarily know if that works in my opinion, because like people who play Dark Souls came up earlier. Like, it's a very specific type of game when you play Dark Souls, and it would be very hard. Like, I know there's games that say they're a Dark Souls style game, but I usually feel like that means the setting, not the way the game plays, because Dark Souls is a rage game. Like, Dark Souls is made to be unpleasant to play. It would be like playing what is that that Just Up. It's like playing the role-playing game, playing the Just Up role-playing game, where you're just like climbing a pile of trash and to see how high you can get, but like the physics are bad, so you fall off every once in a while.
What?
Yeah, there's a game called Just Up. It's a rage game. So rage games.
Say you should probably back up and give us.
Do you know what? Do you know what a rage game is? Have you heard? A rage game is a game that is made to frustrate the players, where it's frustrating. It's a lot of pattern recognition, and it's a lot of just starting over. Like, you get so far in the level, and then your character inevitably falls, and you inevitably have to start the level over and just do it again. And like, Dark Souls is designed that way. Dark Souls was like one of the first kind of inspirations for that type of game, because it's made to be hard. And I don't think role-playing games are inherently again, because it's not a computer. Like,
Mhm.
if you're a GM and you're intentionally making the game like Dark Souls, I feel like your players are eventually just going to hate you and not want to play your game anymore because you're intentionally killing them at some point.
Maybe. I don't think the point would be to necessarily intentionally kill them, as do you say, for the rage game, but do they like the challenge that it presents is more the thing that you're trying to tease out. Like if you look at your friends in there and like you have one friend that plays, what was that, like Wordle, and another friend that plays Dark Souls. I mean, that's going to translate to the type of
But
pastimes that they like to do,
but
right?
here's the significant difference.
Mhm.
Dark Souls has a skill cap. You can influence the game through skill.
Mhm.
Role-playing games have dice where you roll them to be random. You will kill the players eventually if you're depending on their dice to roll well at a key moment, because it might not happen. Like, eventually, if you keep throwing hard things at them, you will murder them just through odds. And that's the difference between a role-playing game and a video game. Is a video game is made to be hard, but you can overcome difficulty with skill. Whereas role-playing games, you can make hard, but luck is going to play a factor eventually. And if you throw enough lucky circumstances, you're going to lose big at some point. That's just how odds work.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, so how would you guys help players identify their preferred level of fun in a role playing game?
I would rank my players. Like I said, I would use this as a GM. I would sit down, I would write out the archetypes, and then I would rank the players, and then play the game, and then ask for feedback. I feel like that's the most important thing that you can do with players is ask them for feedback. Um, because them telling you how, if they had fun or what they did, what
Mhm.
stood out in the game, I think is the most important part.
Fair enough. Jeff, what
Honestly,
about you?
I would probably take a hybrid approach because you're just Mike. I need everyone's input. Give it to me. And Brent's like, I'm going to secretly judge all of you and then tell you what you are. And no, some people are going to be okay with both of those things, and it's not as harsh as I'm making it sound.
Well, I'm never going to
But
tell the players that I did it.
I would think I would ask. I'm like I'm trying to make sure that this game, like meets all your needs and you get the things out of
Mhm.
it that you want as a player. Would you be willing to rate yourself on this kind of, on these categories and tell me theoretically what percentage of it, does that make up you as a player? And if you won't, that's fine. I'll try to come up with whatever I can approximate as the best, and then I'll ask you what you think of it.
I,
If you're
I'm
okay with
going
that.
to.
And
I'm definitely going to put out a survey for the next game now, Brent. Just because of this, and I'm just going to be on my Likert scale is going to be not important at all to very important. That it's
Okay, I'll
pleasant.
send that blank sheet back to you.
I just feel like you would print it out, mark it off like a big X, and then scan it back to me. I think, but as an experiment, I think you should do it anyways.
no, I don't think it hurts to experiment. I mean, I don't think,
Yeah.
but some people aren't comfortable doing these things. Some
and
people
some
don't
people
want to. Some people don't see the value.
and some people don't know.
Yeah.
So if they pigeonhole themselves in a place, they might miss out on something that they would have enjoyed.
It's true. Well, that you as the GM just take that information and kind of present some options. Although I do feel like all of a sudden my survey is becoming less like a scientific survey, like a rate these on a 1 to 5. Now it's becoming more like one of those BuzzFeed surveys. If you were a bird, would you be a hawk, an ostrich, a penguin, or a lark? And then each of those is secretly tied to a play style.
God, I feel like you're value judging us into what was it, the owl, the snake, the shark, and
What the fuck?
those,
Oh, I remember that.
those
I
were they
remember
like
that.
management styles or something?
It was like uh, learning / how to be coach styles. Like, if you're an
Yeah, something.
owl,
Yeah, it was.
I don't
you're.
I don't remember this at
I think
all.
it
So
was after
obviously,
you left that we did that.
okay.
This is something that
I
we
think he
did.
hated it so much that he blacked it out.
No, I think it was after he left. But this is a place where we
There
all
was
worked
definitely
at
an
one
owl
time.
and a shark. The snake, I'm not as sure about.
Yeah, there was an owl and a snake, and I remember it because people walked around all like
Owl, shark, turtle, fox. That's
Yeah,
what it was.
people used to walk around and be like, "I'm a shark, so this is what I think."
Conflict resolution style.
That's it. Yeah, that was it.
Hey, Mike, maybe we should send this to you. We should
I'm
send
a
our
shark.
GM a survey.
So I'm gonna aggressively handle the conflict. Yeah, that was what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, the
I'm a
shark is
sucker for surveys.
competing, aggressive and passive aggressive. The fox is compromising. The owl is collaborating and problem solving. The turtle's avoiding when withdrawing, and then there's a teddy bear, a bear that's accommodation.
Oh, so I just remembered something. That's why I don't like surveys, because I hate these things.
Hey, Brent, we need to have a survey about how much you like surveys.
I was an owl, if I remember right, for the record.
I think I was an owl and a shark.
Yeah, I think I
could be
was.
pretty passive
Goblin in the
aggressive.
woods.
As YouTube's probably gonna.
You can tell we've all been in corporate America for a while.
All I have to say is that mine, I would make it more specific. If you see a goblin in the woods, what would you do? Stab it, sneak up on it, study it,
change into a goblin and go and try and talk to it, even though you don't speak goblin.
try to
That
become
one.
one with the people. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Well, what we'll see is maybe we'll give this a try, and in a couple months I'll give you a follow up just as part of a blurb to say like, and everybody hated it, and I'm go fuck off, whatever it is. We'll see, but I doubt it'll be that bad. It's just, of course, it's another tool in your tool shed. So that as you go through these
I
different
think
types
belts
of things,
is
what's
the
that?
saying. It's another tool in your tool belt. I think is.
I have an entire
Mike
shed
has
of
so many.
tools.
Mike has so many tools after working for a major tool manufacturer that he needs a shed, Brent, and it's not a small shed. It's not that little thing at Home Depot that you can put up in a weekend. This has got a concrete foundation. It's got footings.
Don't you have a shed, Brent?
No, I don't.
You need more tools, Brent. You know where you can find more tools for GM,
No,
Brent?
you only need one tool.
Right here at Rollwise.
It's a hammer. Because
Just like end plug.
Yeah, good job. You only need one tool, folks. It's a hammer because every problem's a nail.
They all look like nails to me.
And with that, I think we're probably I think we're since apparently we've gone off topic a little bit. You should play games. Obviously, the more you learn about the games, the more you're going to find that they're going to cater to these different types of fun, and the more you're able to match up your players' fun to the types of games you play, the more longevity you'll have.
I think the biggest deal
yeah.
is just kind of identify what types of games your players like, or what moments in games that they enjoy.
Yep. And as a side note, if your players like D&D and everything like that, understanding the types of play that they get out of D&D allows you to kind of jump into that next game more easily. Not to say that, I mean, there are going to be tables where the players are like, "Whoa, you're trying to fuck with my D&D night?"
Well, if you have an entire table of power gamers, you might not want to play Inevitable, for example, or other narrative games that really don't care if you're really good at killing things.
Yeah, the challenge or showdown, you pick.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was reading an article about Blades in the Dark.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a power gamer in your group and you switch to Blades in the Dark, they may not enjoy it as much because it is not really a power gamer game. It's a very narrative game.
Yeah.
So,
but you never know. You might get the power gamer to find other types.
Yeah,
explore other types of fun.
It's true,
and that's the other thing is that.
And that's where this is a weakness in doing this. Regardless, is whether you like rate them or they rate themselves. If they pigeonhole themselves into a certain type of game, or if you pigeonhole them into a certain type of game, they might miss out on experiences that they really enjoy.
Yeah, and that's the drawback for doing all this analysis on your players, is that you may lead them away from experiences that they might otherwise enjoy because you curate it too much instead of let it just happen. Now, admittedly, you might also prevent yourself from buying a game going, this game could be really fun for the group, and then just having a couple terrible sessions with the game and being like, I should have probably seen that this was not the game for our group. Should have seen that coming.
That's when you just cut them off and get new people.
Get a whole new table. So
that's that easy.
So if you have and you would like
that's
to
the source of the
let us
joke.
know how this goes on your table, if you've done stuff like this, or you have your own analyses that you do on your players because you psychoanalyze them, before every game, let us know. Comments, hit them down below. And if you want to talk with us outside of YouTube, Jeff, how do they do that?
Well, you're going to look for us on social media. We are at Rollwise on most platforms. You can definitely send us pictures of your tool sheds or garages just so we can, compare. You can also email us. We are rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
You can also ask Mike to balance a book on his head the entire episode, and we'll work on getting that to happen. And as always, thank you for joining us. We appreciate having you here. Roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there.
Thanks.
Take care.